page Samach Vav. Very good. So before we get these cameras rolling, my cats, this is kind of a Kabbalistic work, but it's also connected to Musar. So what he's doing is he's kind of connecting some of the deeper Kabbalistic ideas and applying them on kind of a practical level for better living. Sometimes it's a little more esoteric, sometimes it's a little more practical. For the session that you're going to be here today, it's a little more practical. It does require a little bit of background information as far as the Kabbalistic ideas, but not too much, so we'll do that first. And then we'll get into the text. Okay, so Perek Shmini, the 8th chapter of the book. Hech yargil odam atzmoi b'midas netzach hod yesod. How can a person accustom himself, connect to the living life according to the essence of the spheros, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod? In this chapter, he covers 3 spheros all in one, as opposed to other chapters which have been dedicated each chapter to a sphera. The chapter of Chesed having been the longest one, and in my opinion, in many ways, the most esoteric of all of the chapters. But here we're talking about the spheros of Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, which are the 3 spheros directly below Tiferes. So what we're talking here about is a hierarchy of a system through which divine energy flows from the spiritual realm into the physical realm, which is used for creation in general, and also has variations in the effect on creation based on the degree of flow that comes down through these spheros, through this hierarchy, where the hierarchy has different parts, different points. One of the points for our purposes, which is what we saw in the previous chapter, is called Tiferes, which is splendor. That's associated with Torah and has the qualities which are associated with Jacob. It is the sphera which is most centrally responsible for the transmission of the influence of Torah down into the world, that kind of juncture of Tiferes. And it's then subdivided into different parts. Below it, Tiferes, you would have Netzach to the right, Hod to the left, and then Yesod in the middle. And we discussed in the previous chapter how the influence of Torah down into the world is affected very often how in the world people who embody Torah, namely the Torah scholars, interact themselves with the world in 3 planes, if you remember. The Torah scholar's interrelationship with his students, that's one plane, corresponding to Netzach and Hod. Second plane is how the Torah scholar interacts with the poor. That would be the relationship between Tiferes and Yesod. And then how the Torah scholar interacts with common folk, uneducated in Torah, the Amei Haaretz, would have an effect on the relationship between Tiferes and Malchus. So that the influence of Torah that comes down from the spiritual realm into the physical realm is in many ways affected by how people who embody Torah in this world act. When they act in a certain way which is repulsive, which is arrogant, what they're causing is the midah of Tiferes, which is in the spiritual realm, the kind of repository for Torah, also to become distanced, separated, aloof, removed from the lower spheres, and therefore the influence of Torah into the world is going to become reduced. But a person who embodies Torah makes that Torah available, accessible to others, makes it pleasant, interesting, accessible to others, then what he's doing is enabling the influence of Torah to be accessible in this world as well. And so this chapter is dealing a little bit more about that process of how Tiferes, or the influence of Tiferes, is channeled down through Netzach, Hod, and Yesod in order to influence in a beneficial way this world as well. So here he starts. Hine avulam b'tikuni Netzach v'Hod, regarding rectifying the spheros of Netzach and Hod, which are immediately below Tiferes, which we discussed in detail in the previous chapter. K'tzasam meshutafim l'shnehem. Some of the ways in which we repair, perfect, harmonize the the spheros of Netzach and Yehod, Netzach and Hod, in some ways they are the same. In some ways they're particular, some to Netzach and some to Hod. So he's going to be explaining now how we can connect to the spheros of Netzach and Hod in terms of our relationship with the Torah, in order from this world's point of view, do something to bring down and ensure a positive influence from the spiritual realm. In some ways, the effects are, or the effort is going to be the same, both for Netzach and Hod, and in some ways particular to either Netzach or either Yesod. Netzach or Hod. Ine. Rishona tzarich l'sayeh lomdei haTorah ulachzikam. The first, foremost thing to keep in mind when we're trying to influence the flow of Torah down into the world is to support, to help and to support those who learn Torah. These are the Lomdei Torah. And he's saying this because the spheros of Netzach and Hod, which we're trying to connect to here, correspond to the legs. The body part of the leg, which would correspond to the hierarchy of the spheros. So in general, remember we said that some of the spheros, and the Keser corresponds to the head, and then you've got Chochmah, Bina, right, left brain, and then Das in the middle, Chesed, Gvura, right, left arm, right, Tiferes, torso. So Netzach and Hod are going to be right leg and left leg. Just like the legs of a person on the right or the left, they support the body, let's say the torso, where the torso is Tiferes, so too a person who does something to support Torah, he's actually supporting the sphere of Tiferes. And we find, for example, if we say that Tiferes corresponds to Yaakov, when Yaakov, we're told in the Torah, was wrestling with the angel throughout the night, that angel was the ministering angel of Esav. And it was on the eve of Yaakov's coming to confront Esav. And we find that through grappling throughout the night, the ministering angel of the nation of Esav could not overcome Yaakov. Yaakov being Tiferes, Tiferes being Torah, and there being no way of anything, certainly not the koyach of Esav, even the koyach of Esav, to actually affect or undermine or to damage the quality of Torah. No way. The Torah is protected from everything. Ultimately, what Esav, the ministering angel of Esav, chose to do was to strike Yaakov where? On his thigh, on his leg. And Yaakov went limping, which means that the Torah itself is not something that Esav can affect or harm in any way. If Esav, any negative or any other negative force, wants to affect or to harm or damage the Torah, they can't do so by going a frontal attack on the Torah itself. The Torah is like a shield. It's a shield which causes any arrows to be rebounded off. Right? The way to get to the Tiferes behind the shield is to hit the knee, to get the leg. And that's what Esav did. Esav went after the thigh of Yaakov corresponding, of course, to Netzach and Hod, which are what we call the Tomchei Torah, the supporters of Torah. So anybody throughout history who ever wanted to get at Torah can't do so directly, but has to do so by going through the Tomchei Torah, those who support the Torah. Those who, so if you can harm those who support Torah, either by supporting them monetarily or supporting them physically, in any way, that would be the way to bring down the Torah. The opposite of that would also be true. That anybody who does whatever they can to support those who study Torah, either emotionally supporting them, financially supporting them, physically supporting them or protecting them, it's as if they are upholding the Torah itself. Just like those who support Torah, if you take them out, that's a way of taking Torah down. Those who actually proactively support Torah it's as if they're actually supporting the Torah. And therefore he says, if you want to connect to Tiferes, which is Torah, a very integral way of doing so by connecting to the spheros of Netzach and Hod, which are the supporters of the Torah. Now, the mitzvah of Limud Torah is something that a person does in his mind, right? He thinks about the words of Torah. It's a mitzvah to actually enunciate the words of Torah that he's learning with his mouth. But in terms of fulfilling the mitzvah of living a Torah with one's body, there's really no way of doing that. And a person is supposed to fulfill all the mitzvahs as much as possible on 3 levels: mental, emotional, verbal, and physical, corresponding to the levels of soul, neshama, ruach, and nefesh. We've discussed this. In order for a person's observance to be as holistic, well-rounded, and spiritually potent as possible, he should be working on these 3 planes of action, speech, and thought, corresponding to nefesh, ruach, and neshama, in order to elevate the service into the spiritual realm as much as possible. But living a Torah, for example, cannot be done that way. Like we said, it's only on the plane of thought and emotion. How can we fulfill the mitzvah of Torah through action? One way would be, for example, to move, as you're learning. Yeah, but even when you're doing that, you're not directly involving the body in the act of in the process of Torah learning. One way that's suggested to involve your actual body in the process of Torah learning is to support those who are studying Torah. So that if a person works, for example, he earns money, and part of that money he uses to give charity and support those who are learning Torah. The actual body movements that he did to earn that money are viewed as being engaged in Torah, because those bodily movements are fueling the act of learning Torah. Even more so than going like this. Yeah? Even more than moving his body as he's learning. Of course, that's one of the ideas of moving one's body while learning, so that his body is engaged in the rhythm of the dynamic of learning Torah. But another important way of doing it, like I said, is to, and it relates to what he's saying here, is to connect to the spheros of Netzach and Hod by supporting those who are learning Torah. Why? Because if it becomes like the leg, the supporting pillars of Torah, v'imamamono obamaaseu, whether it's with his money that he's using to support Torah, or whether it's through his actions. For example, lahazmin lehem tzorchei shimush, to provide for them the things that they need. It might be clothing. It might be a table. Is that what you said? Yeah, to put the books on. Yeah. Anything that people need in order to study. Fluorescent lighting. Yeah. Air conditioning, if you need it. Whatever the case may be. Not everybody can learn. Not everybody has an opportunity to learn. Even if they can, they just might not be able to because they need to earn a living, for example. Yeah. But anything that a person could do when he's not learning, to have those actions connected in some way to the Torah, this would be connecting to and living his life according to the spheres of Netzach and Hod. Yeah.
I have a question. So, a person that really grew up conservative and then supports Torah studying, so he's essentially doing the same thing. I don't see.
You mean to say he lives his life according to the conservative level of observance, you mean?
Yeah.
But he uses his money to support normal mainstream learning, for example? Is that what you mean?
Or Orthodox.
Yeah, or orthodoxy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's great. That's great. It doesn't make this person observant. It doesn't make this person observant if he's not entirely observant. But he certainly has. But he certainly has the mitzvah, an important integral part of the Torah learning that he's supporting. For sure, no doubt. Mm-hmm. He shouldn't use the money, nor should anybody else use the money or the way he supports Torah with the intention of vicariously learning and vicariously learning.
He has
no.
a piece in it, or...
Yeah, he shouldn't say, well, I can afford to be non-observant because I'm supporting Torah study of those who are observant.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, if that's his intention, that's wrong, of course. Yeah, that's wrong. I value the Torah, and I value people who learn Torah in the traditional way, and I respect those who do so. I personally choose, for whatever reason, not to live my life entirely that way. But if I'm going to donate money for Torah, I want to donate it to what I recognize the value of orthodoxy. Or you might say, the conservative movement in Shul has plenty of money. They charge $5,000 for Rosh Hashanah seats, but the Orthodox shuls charge $50. They can't support themselves. So I'm going to give my money to the ones who need it most. Maybe that's his intention. I don't know. But whatever it is, yeah, of course he has an important part in that Torah learning. And just because he's personally not observant doesn't try to detract from the fact that he's supporting in whatever way that might be those who are genuinely learning and observing Torah. So it might be, for example, on his way to work, he davens, and after davening, there's a kollel. People learn there. So he might take a bag of milk and put it in the kitchen of the shul and go off to work, knowing that the people who stay there learning in the morning will have that milk to have some coffee and kind of, make it nicer, more pleasant for them to learn. Great, yeah. It might be once a week or once a month, leaving some cakes out or some other food that they might enjoy, making the blessings over and enjoy, and that's a great thing. He's going to shul anyway. He's got plenty of money, so spend $10, $15 a day or a week, leaving something in the shul there for the people who are going to be learning there to enjoy and to benefit and help their learning. Yeah, or even better, figure out what books, what they're studying now in the kollel, and maybe they're learning Gemara Makkos. Buy 10 Masechtas Makkos for the use of the yeshiva, for the kollel. Great. He's not learning. He's going to work. He's a lawyer. He spends 9 to 5 and even more, right? Working the legal system the best he can. But he's earning money doing so. So let him buy Gemaras for the kollel, and they'll be learning in the meantime. So he's actually connecting to the Torah that's being done as he's walking to court, as he's speaking to the judge, trying to get this guy off the hook for drunk driving. Yeah, he's actually involved in the mitzvah of limud Torah. It's an amazing thing. Of course, it would be better for him to be learning, but like you said, not everybody can do that for whatever reason. But if he's using his body to earn money from which he intends to support others who are learning, so the bodily actions that he's taking themselves are enabling him to connect to limud Torah through, not Tiferes, but through Netzach and Hod. Yeah, the supporters of Torah, the Tomchei Torah. Lahazminam tzorchei shimush, to prepare for them anything that they might need for their learning. Vazmonas mozoin v'hafakas kol retzoinam, and to take care of whatever they might want. Shelo yisbatlu midivrei Torah, in order that they should not be negated, nullified, or distracted from learning their Torah. It's very, very hot. He's about to go downtown in his air-conditioned Ferrari. He pulls into his air-conditioned parking lot, into his air-conditioned elevator, into his air-conditioned office, pleasantly receiving his clients, yes, in this climate-controlled environment with a beautiful view over the ocean, yeah. But the Torah scholars are schwitzing away in the shul. There's no air conditioning. The fan is just blowing hot air on everybody, drying off the sweat and dehydrating them in the meantime, yeah. So maybe he should consider donating an air conditioner to the shul, yeah. It's true. The Torah scholars should be willing and lovingly, willing to learn Torah despite the fact that they're being blown on by so much hot air, and they probably are willing to do so and will continue to do so. But everything has its toll. And a person might not be able to devote as much mental energy to his Torah study that this lawyer is able to dedicate to his client sitting there in his climate-controlled environment. If he donates the air conditioner, these guys might be able to learn, probably will be able to learn better, more efficiently, yeah? And it'll be a lot more cool if they have an air conditioner. So why not? But you get the picture, right? Whatever might, without indulging, whatever might be necessary and helpful in order to improve the quantity and the quality of the Torah these people are learning. If a person can't be there, at least think about what can be done in order to help them. I'm certainly interested in making my environment pleasant throughout the day, as are hundreds of thousands of other people who are going downtown, wherever that might be, in Gotham City, across the world. So maybe so why not think about what might help these people make their Torah learning a little more pleasant? In the meantime, you get a great mitzvah for doing so. That makes you connected. That connects you to Netzach and Hod. Furthermore, aside from the actual material help, which we've divided into two aspects, financial and physical, there's another plane, which is emotional, psychological. Be careful not to disparage their learning oh, those Torah scholars are a bunch of, good for nothing, lazy bums, living off everybody else, mooching off everybody for their air conditioning. Of course I have air conditioning. I work for my money. That's why I have an air conditioning. You don't have air conditioning? It's because you're a lazy bum. You sit around learning Torah all day, doing nothing worthwhile. There are people who say that. Yeah, there are people who say that. Say it all the time, right? Whatever reason it might be, right? Yeah, whatever reason it might be. That would be antithetical to what we're talking about. No, the person should say, I value Torah study. It's a good thing that people study. I can't do it, and I'm not of the opinion that everybody should, and I think the Torah would probably also say that not everybody should do it, because if everybody's doing it, then nobody could provide the air conditioning. Yeah? But at least those who are doing it, they're not loafing around, they're doing something very important, and they're ensuring the continuity of the Jewish people. All types of nations have continuity physically. You just get married and have children. Sometimes even if you don't get married, you have children. It preserves the people. Yeah? But we're not French. We're not German. We're not American. Where you can preserve, right, French people or German people or American people by just having babies. No, the Jewish people are preserved by having the Torah. And if they don't have the Torah, then they're no different than the French or the German and the American. They're just biological people. But what makes Jewish people unique is the fact they have the Torah, which means that you have to have people who are dedicated to learning the Torah and teaching the Torah, transmitting the Torah. And therefore, it's an integral part of the Jewish people to have people who are learning Torah. Therefore, even if it's not for me, and I'm of the opinion it's not for everybody, I do at least support those who are committed to it. More power to you. More power to you. Very good. I'm not even Orthodox. I might be conservative. But I still recognize the value of pure Torah for the Jewish people, and I'm willing to donate some of my money to preserving orthodoxy as well. That's great. The Federation does that. You have to be careful, therefore, not to disparage their Torah study. So they should not become weakened as a result of people's opinions and what people say and write and so forth and so on about the Torah. They shouldn't be weakened from their commitment. Rather, what should you do? In addition to actually financially or physically supporting their Torah study, you should lechabdam, show them honor, ulahalal ma'aseim etoivim, and to praise their good deeds. That's wonderful. They live a life of relative self-sacrifice, on a lower standard of living often. They put in more hours than most professionals. That's a wonderful thing. I'm impressed by how committed they are. In order that they should be strengthened in what they do. When I saw a soldier walking down the street, not always, but sometimes, I always think, sometimes I do say, thank you very much. Thanks for taking 3 years out of your life in order to protect us. Do your part in protecting the Jewish people. And they look at me like, wow, that guy's weird. Yeah. But I've never seen it the other way around. Yeah. Some Torah scholars walking down the street. Excuse me, sir. I want to thank you very much for doing what you can to protect the Jewish people. Preserve. Yeah, but that's the type of thing we're talking about. Yeah. What's that? Nobody's ever said it to me. Yeah. Nobody's ever said it to me. In general, we should be appreciative of one another, recognize the importance of what everybody's doing. Each one's doing their own thing, but it's all important, fits in the matrix of society in general, and hopefully what most Jewish people are doing is contributes to the matrix of Jewish society as well. It's good to be appreciative of that all the time, and at least express it some of the time. Very nice. The yeshiva bacher, you perhaps should decline. Thank you very much for showing me the sensitivity to go before you. But please, I don't want any special treatment. If the person says, "Listen, I just have to go downtown," You're on your way to yeshiva. It's more important that you go as fast as possible. So I would probably do it. So what do I have to do? I just have to get to work on time. But you have to go learn. So if I can save you 15 minutes of waiting in line, by all means. I don't know what I would do. But you know what? Nobody's ever said that to me. Anyway, yeah, you're saying in Europe, people did that. People did that. Yeah, people did that. Yeah. Even in non-Jewish societies, and certainly according to Torah law, Torah scholars are given special exemption from taxes and so forth and so on, because they're dedicating themselves to Torah study, which doesn't receive great remuneration. And number one, and number two, they were viewed as kind of contributing to society, so therefore they are exempt from the types of onus that people generally have to do in order to contribute to society.
In Israel or in other countries, like in monks as well.
It has been that way in non-Jewish countries and in Jewish communities, and that's the basis for some of that type of legislation in Israel as well, which is gradually being eroded and eradicated. But that type of thing has been put in place in the past. Yeah. So therefore, one is connecting to the midah of Netzach and Hod by being emotionally and psychologically supportive of Torah as well. Lahazmin lehem sforim tzorich iskam, to order for them books which they need for their Torah learning, which is something I mentioned before. Ubeis midrash, and provide for them a place to learn. V'kol kiyotze, and anything like that. Shu chizuk v'sa'ad la'oiskei Torah, because it is strengthening and supporting those who are learning Torah. And in this way they become like Netzach and Hod, which support Tiferes. Akol talui b'shtei midos alalu. It all depends on these two midos of Netzach and Hod. Perhaps we can suggest particularly Netzach has to do with, Netzach means something which is like everlasting. Or it's also related to like Lenetzeach, to succeed, to overcome. Where Hod has to do with beauty. So perhaps these two spheres are connected to supporting Torah because one contributes in this way in order to perpetuate, that's Netzach, perpetuate the ability for people to continue to learn. And one does so in a way which has in mind what will be good, pleasant, for the Lomdei Torah, for those who are learning Torah, and that would correspond to Hod, so that he's providing for their ability to learn and also making the experience of doing so pleasant. And in this way, he's giving grandeur and beauty and honor, which all is associated with Hod, to the Torah as well. Kol echad lefi kocho, everybody according to his ability. One person has more money, a person has less. One person might be able to donate or contribute real estate, and others movable objects. A person might have a bakery, so he can put aside a certain amount of his baked goods for the use of those who learn Torah. Another person might be an electrician, yeah. So let him meiser his work as an electrician. He's got plenty of clients, right? A person is required to give 1/10 of his income to charity, so let him give 1/10 of his work time to working on the electricity in the shul, for example. Every person, without having to give any money. What?
Oh, that's interchangeable.
Yeah. There's a monetary value to that work.
Does that 10% have to be within the Jewish community in order to fulfill that mitzvah?
The mitzvah of Meiser is, strictly speaking, supposed to be for Jewish people, and there's a hierarchy within the Jewish people who gives precedence to who. But for the purpose of peace among the nations, one can also use charity monies of charity to give to non-Jews as well, needy non-Jews, if that's what you mean.
Beyond that 10%.
Then it's no longer Meiser. It's just a gift from his own money.
So within the 10%, it can be split up?
Yes, a person can use even the Meiser money for supporting the needy of for supporting for contributing to needy non-Jews. But it shouldn't all be. If he's going to do that, it shouldn't all be used for that. But rather only part of that, because there's a hierarchy of who he should give to, even among the Jewish people. And also, he should refrain from doing so unless if it's not going to make any difference. In other words, if it's not going to help cultivate friendly relations between Jews and non-Jews, if it's not going to do anything to improve relations between Jews and non-Jews, so we might as well give it to those who are closer to him that need it than those who are further away. But if it's a situation where if he doesn't give, it's going to create animosity, or at least practically giving will help bring, what's the word I'm looking for?
Peace?
Yeah. Enmity. Yeah. Then it can be done.
So within the Jewish context, it's okay to donate anonymously, but outside of the Jewish context, you want to be recognized for your role as a Jew. And
yeah, maybe if not individually, but nationally, yes. In other words, you're right. That's an interesting point you're raising. Yeah. But even if you're giving to the non-Jews, it would be better to do so anonymously as far as your individual is concerned, but it would be beneficial to do so that they know it's coming from a Jew, from an observant Jew. Yeah, because the purpose for the impetus for giving in such a case is to try and bring about more peaceful, amiable relations between Jews and non-Jews. So of course, it would be better if they do know it's coming from Jews. Yeah. Hama'atu imrav, meaning every person according to his ability, whether he's giving a lot or a little, whether he's giving monetarily or physically, whether he's giving physically or emotionally, whatever the case, every person according to his ability to give his particular situation. Sof Devorah, the bottom line here is Kol ma sheyarbe bazeh lechaber Torah. The more he can do in this respect, in order to increase the honor of the Torah, ulachzika b'dibur b'gufo u'b'mamono, and to support it through his speech, through his body, and through his money, uleoirer leva briois ala Torah, and to stir up the interest and the zeal that people have on behalf of the Torah, sheyischazkuba, that they should be strengthened through it. Hakol nechaz v'nishrash b'shtei sfiros elu. It's all of this is connected and included in these spheros, the Netzach and Hod, mipnei shehem nikrim machzikim bo v'soimcheya. They are referred to, Netzach and Hod, as those who support the Torah, meaning because they are supporting Tiferes, v'samcheha. Etz chaim hi, l'machzikim ba. How does it continue to go? V'samcheha, meushar. Yeah. Etz chaim hi l'machzikim ba. It's a tree of life for those who take hold of it. Those are the ones who learn it. V'samcheha meushar. And those who support it, they themselves are very happy and blessed through the fact that they're helping other people be connected to the learning of the Torah. And they themselves are connected to the learning of the Torah by supporting it. It's chaim. Let's try and do the next section before we break. What's further necessary for those who are engaged in Torah learning? Sheyilmad mikol adam. That he should be prepared to learn from any person. K'diksiv, as it says, mikol milamadai, hiskalti. From all of those who I learned from, I have become enlightened. That's kind of redundant. Of course, if you've learned something from someone, you've become enlightened by that person. That can't be what it means. That's obvious. What it means is, mikol milamadai, from the fact that I have made myself available to learn from everybody, I found a way in which I can learn from every person. Hiskalti, I became enlightened. Ki eina Torah mishtalemes etzel rab echad, because you won't find the Torah complete by one rabbi. Yeah. Therefore, you have to try and find as many different rabbis as possible. Here he's going a little more specific on the application of this verse. That a person should try and learn Torah from as many different people as possible. V'kevan shunase talmid l'kol, since he has made himself like a student of everyone, zoch liyos merkava el netzach v'hod limudei Hashem, he has merited to make himself like a chariot for Netzach and Hod, who are called the Limudei Hashem. Why? He has made an effort to learn from all those who learn Torah. So it seems to me like he's setting up here the idea of connecting to Yesod. If Tiferes is Torah, and Netzach and Hod are the Lomdei Torah, the ones who learn Torah, a person wants to connect himself to that process of Torah learning and transmission of Torah. He has to do so by trying to learn from as many students of Torah as possible, represented by the multiplicity of the spheros of Netzach and Hod. And therefore he's making himself a receptacle for Netzach and Hod, which would place him in connection to Netzach and Hod, of Yesod. V'mashpia alav Torah hu madreges Tiferes, and one who is mashpia upon him Torah would be like Tiferes. So maybe again he's talking about Netzach and Hod. Rabbi Yosef v'loimed, now that he's sitting and learning, zoich ala Tiferes sheshpia b'Netzach v'Hod, he's causing Tiferes to give its influence into Netzach and Hod, Fuhu b'madrigasa mamish, and he is on their level. So I was wrong about connecting it to Yesod at this point. He's still working on Netzach and Hod. So let's say, for example, if there were no students, like you said, what does the yeshiva need? Right? The yeshiva is in the business of teaching. In order to teach, you need students. If you don't have students, there's no teaching. So I'm a student, of course, of you guys, like we said. The Torah's approach is, I've learned much from my rabbis, more from my colleagues, and the most from my students. But still, in the more direct kind of system of learning, you have a teacher, but if there are no students, he's not going to be teach. He's not going to be teaching. How can a teacher teach if there's no students? And therefore, a person who makes himself accessible to learn is actually causing the teacher to teach. So that becoming a student of Torah makes himself like Netzach and Hod, is actually causing the influence. He's being the cause for the hashpah of Tiferes to come down into the world. Right? It's his being there which is engendering the teaching. And if he wasn't there, there would be no teaching. So there would be no Tiferes. His being there, therefore, is resulting in the Tiferes coming down to be mashpia in the world. Vine biyosay loimed mikra shumini miyamin. When a person more specifically is learning Torah, which is to the right, yesh lo yachas prati el netzach. We have a more refined and specific connection of his Torah learning to the sphera of Netzach. Ubiyoso loimed Mishnah, and when he's learning Mishnah, Shimina small, which is to the left, Yesh lo yachas prati el hod. He has a more specific and refined connection through his learning to the sphera of Hod. V'ha-Gemara, and the Gemara, which is a commentary on the Mishnah, meaning it's explaining the Mishnah, Ha-Kalula B'Kol, it's actually combined of everything, both the verses and the Mishnah teachings on the verses. Shemivia Raya L'Dinei Mishnah, which brings proofs to the laws of the Mishnah, Mina Kosuv, from the actual verses. Harizei Tikun L'Shnehem Yachad. This Gemara would be, the process of learning Gemara would be a tikkun, a rectification, a perfection of both of them together. Both of what? Both Torah and Mishnah, which is Netzach and Yehod, and therefore I imagine that the Gemara would correspond to Yesod. The Gemara would correspond to Yesod. So in an earlier section, I was saying that Tiferes corresponds to Torah Shebichtav, and Malchus corresponds to Torah Sheba'al Peh. And somebody pointed out that Netzach would seem to be Torah Shebichtav, and Hod, Torah Sheba'al Peh. So the answer is that's true to a certain extent, but really we have to refine the idea as follows. That Tiferes corresponds to Torah Shebichtav in the sense that I was using. It doesn't mean just the written Torah. It means the embodiment of the divine knowledge that we call Torah. That's Tiferes. Tiferes is Torah. It's the entire body of Torah knowledge. That body of Torah knowledge was separated into a written form. That's the actual verses of the Torah, which would correspond to the right, and Netzach. Okay? But it also has part of the explanations, which are oral. That would be Mishnah. The Mishnah, however, is only part of the oral Torah. It is a written, concise version of the explanation of the verses. So that in truth, the body of knowledge of Torah, which is Tiferes, is subdivided into written verses and oral explanations of those verses, which are teachings. And that would correspond to Hod. But that doesn't make it Torah Sheba'al Peh. Why? Because Torah Sheba'al Peh is the counterpart of Tiferes. Just like Tiferes is all-inclusive body of knowledge of the Torah, which is subdivided into the verses and to the Mishnah, Torah Sheba'al Peh, which is the oral Torah, has to be the ability to actually understand that knowledge of Torah. That's Gemara. Gemara would be the explanation of the fusion of Torah Shebichtav, the written verses to the right, which is Netzach, Torah Sheba'al Peh, meaning the Mishnah, which is the explanation of those verses to the left. The fusion of those two would be Yesod. Okay? So Yesod would be Gemara. Gemara is the process of explaining and bringing into some type of practical use the knowledge which is subdivided from Tiferes, which is the generic Torah, through the verses and through the Mishnah. That's collected into Yesod. Okay? However, the purpose of the Gemara is not just to understand the Torah, which is what it does, right? It's not just to understand the Torah. It's actually to take that understanding one step further, which is halacha. And therefore, that would correspond to the final sphere of Malchus. Okay? Halacha. But what that means is, Malchus is called Torah Sheba'al Peh because it is the ultimate expression of Torah Sheba'al Peh. If everything is included initially in Tiferes, but it's subdivided into the verses and into the Mishnah, by the way, the Mishnah to the left, feminine, underneath Bina, would be about explaining those verses, right? It takes the Torah idea and elaborates on it. Just like the relationship between Chesed and Devorah does the same thing. Or between Chochmah and Bina, Chesed and Devorah does the same thing. It's about differentiating, distinction, and so forth and so on. Ultimately, however, right, you need to know what it means. That's in the Gemara. But the purpose of the Gemara is to actually be able to do, so that the full coming into fruition of the Torah, which is in potential in Tiferes, takes place where? In Malchus. And that's why, I've said earlier, when we're only speaking in more general terms, why Tiferes is Torah Shebichtav. It means it's the raw form of the Torah that we have. And Malchus is Torah Sheba'al Peh because it is the epitome of the Torah Sheba'al Peh. It's the plane in which the Torah Sheba'al Peh comes into fruition, which is on the plane of action. It's doing what we've understand. It's performing the Torah. And that makes it correspond to Malchus. Malchus connecting to this world. And it is the platform upon which we actually perform and fulfill the Torah. Okay? So now we have a fusion of the more general approach that I was presenting earlier and the more refined approach that somebody was suggesting earlier. Okay? Tiferes is Torah. Malchus is Torah Sheba'al Peh. In the meantime, you have the written verses in the Mishnah, right and left, Netzach Hod. You have Yesod, which is the Gemara, which is explaining that, and then the Malchus, which is the bringing of that explanation to fruition into the plane of action, and Malchus. Okay? Harizeh, Tikkun L'Shneim Yachad. Okay, let's stop here, and we'll continue B'ezrat Hashem tomorrow.